Welcome into Special Decision 2025 coverage streaming on 9 News Plus. Thanks for finding us tonight. We're going to break down some of the earliest results that have come in over the last 15 minutes. We already know where a number of key issues stand tonight. Thank you for joining us. I'm Kyle Clark. I am alongside Mallory Harris, who is our senior producer who helps lead our political coverage here. And we're going to kind of break down these races one by one, give you a bit of background on where things stand. And our first focus tonight is on Denver's Vibrant Denver bond. This is Mayor Mike Johnson's kind of big signature project halfway through his first term. And as it stands right now, all 5 parts of this are just flying through, up 20 percentage points or more in the early vote that's come in.
Big night for Mike Johnston.
Yeah, I mean, it is. I mean, we asked him earlier this week, did he see this as a referendum on his term as mayor? And he tried to kind of push that off a bit. Yeah, he didn't want to go there. But now that they're up 20 points, maybe he's like, actually, you know what? You know what?
This is a referendum on me, and the people are loving what I'm doing. They're loving what I got going on.
Yeah, on second thought, yeah. So this again, Vibrant Denver. This is the biggest issue in the city tonight. It's split into 5 parts. It is 1A through 1B. 1A is the part that has the secret stuff stuffed in it for the Broncos Stadium, the viaduct replacements at 6th and 8th Avenue. 2B is Parks and Rec. This is $70 million for the Park Hill Golf Course. 2C is Health and Human Services. 2D is Infrastructure. 2E, Housing and Homelessness. And as you see, it is just across the board, wide margins for all of these. This gels with what we've seen from Denver voters in the past, that they generally are supportive of these bonds. But there was the one instance in recent years where one of them kind of went down unexpectedly.
Yeah, the 2021 bond for National Western Arena failed pretty spectacularly.
Yep.
I think, in the 40 margin. And I don't know if people saw that as a referendum on Mayor Hancock or whether they just didn't want the arena, because they did go for some other expansion at the National Western Center.
Yeah. Let's take a quick look at where the one statewide measure sits tonight, and then we're going to get back into the Denver situation. So the one statewide measure that is up for grabs tonight is LL and MM. They're kind of paired together, and this is to continue funding the state's school lunch program, the so-called free lunch program. Of course, it's not free, or they wouldn't have to ask you for money to fund it. But Coloradans appear to be very much on board with continuing this program that provides lunch for free for school students, regardless of income, regardless of where they live in the state. The Prop LL portion allows the state to retain excess revenue that they pulled in from higher income earners, and the Prop MM side allows the state to raise taxes on higher income individuals and households, people making more than $300,000 a year. And this again is for school lunches. And this is actually passing by a wider margin than the original 2022 proposal to start this program. But as we have reported on Next for a couple of years now, funding has been a constant issue for this thing.
Yeah, it's really a math equation. I think once you already have people on board with the idea of funding a school lunch program, the idea that you just need to keep a little bit extra tax revenue to fully fund the program or to fund it at the level that we have brought in tax revenue for, it's not a large bridge to pass for people. Yeah. They've already said yes to the original premise, and this is really just a math equation to make sure that the program, as promised to voters originally, is funded to its fullest potential. Prop MM, this extra funding that would raise taxes on households or individuals making over $300,000 a year, would help fund additional things like raises for cafeteria workers, healthy food programs, additional funding for SNAP if needed, if there was leftover. So it seems like voters are just taking one more step to add funding to the program that they already are on board with.
So to kind of step back a little bit and talk about what we're seeing with these early results, they are early in the sense that they are the first results that we're getting tonight, but they're not early in the sense that a lot of people traditionally think about election results, where you'll get 2% in, 5% in, 10% in. Because of the way that Colorado votes, almost entirely by mail, and most folks drop off before Election Day. This is a big tranche of votes that comes in right at 7 p.m. So the easiest way to look at this, right, there's always going to be exceptions, but the easiest way to look at this is if something is within single digits, totally up for grabs. If it's around like a 10 or a 12-point margin, even a 15-point margin, then there's a chance that that could swing when the final votes come in. All of the day of voting, right? The first votes to come in tend to skew Republican, tend to skew a little bit older. The later votes coming in tend to skew a little bit more liberal, a little bit younger. But once you see stuff in the margins that we have seen, both the vibrant Denver bond passing and the support for the school lunch program passing by 20 percentage points or more, those are very, very safe margins when you look at the early voting in Colorado. So let's jump back to Denver here for a second, if we could, because the other big issue up in Denver tonight is 310. That's the flavored tobacco ban. Mm-hmm. And so what we're looking at there is that a yes vote is to continue the ban, which was passed by City Council, supported by Mayor Johnson. But basically, there's kind of been like a little bit of a hitch in the giddy up as this gets challenged now. But the key thing to remember about this, it's overwhelmingly winning. Those are Saddam Hussein numbers. Those are very impressive numbers.
Safe margin.
Safe margin for the flavored tobacco ban is that this is the race that has seen some wild big money.
Yeah, this is the Mayor Mike initiative. So Mayor Mike Johnson is the one that originally signed this ban into place. Mayor Michael Bloomberg, former Mayor Michael Bloomberg, has put almost $5 million into this race. It's one of the largest campaign contributions by an individual in municipal history. So definitely putting his money where his mouth is. He's long been a big anti-tobacco guy. There's been an organized campaign opposing the ban, but nowhere near the kind of funding we've seen for the ban.
One other issue out of Denver that we want to call your attention to, and this is a little bit in the weeds, but if you are watching political coverage at 7:21 p.m. on 9 News Plus, you probably care about this, or you can't find the remote. And so that is 2G. 2G would change the way Denver's at-large city council races are run. And it would basically put them into a runoff system like the mayoral election. So if you know the Denver mayoral election, everybody and their mother runs in the first round, right? We had like 27 candidates or something last year. And then you pare down to 2. And what that forces voters to do is that somebody's going to get 50+1. Somebody's going to get a majority. And that prevents a situation where somebody can win a, say, 5-person race with 20% of the vote.
Right, and that's a system that we have set up for at-large races right now, where you can win with 20-30% of the vote, and we've seen that recently with some of the more progressive members on council, both the at-large members, Serena Gonzalez-Gutierrez and Sarah Parody, both won in the 20-30 margin. So this would just be, the idea is standardizing this race in the same way that all the other races are standardized, splitting the at-large races into 2 separate races instead of one large ballot, just pick your favorite 2 winners. The supporters say that this is about making sure that the at-large council members have a majority of the vote like everybody else rather than just a plurality. Some of the more fringe candidates on either the left or the Republican side would say that this is not great for grassroots efforts.
Yeah, and it's very interesting because the 2 most progressive members of council in Denver are the 2 at-large councilwomen who have pretty high profiles around the city. You mentioned both of them, and you'll hear progressives say that this measure that's currently passing tonight by a wide margin, 2G, is intended to force the progressives out. But the backers of it, including some of the more conservative folks on council like Kevin Flynn, go, oh, no, those 2 women would win anyway. No, they're great. They would totally win anyway, even if we changed the system. But progressives are very shy about the change that it looks like Denver voters are okay with implementing tonight. So our top headline at this point, if you're joining us a little bit late in the stream, the Vibrant Denver Bond. This is Mayor Mike Johnson's big signature initiative here, halfway through his first term, if he gets more than 1 term, is passing easily tonight by very wide margins. Yesterday, I spoke to the mayor and I asked him whether he viewed this as a referendum on how he's doing as mayor. Is it fair for Denver's voters to use this bond package as a referendum on how they think you're doing as mayor?
I think this is not about that. I think this is about what are the key things you want to get done in your neighborhood, and do you want there to be a safe crosswalk to school in your neighborhood? Do you want your rec center to have air conditioning? Do you want to have a library in your neighborhood? Do you want to make sure the bridges in and out of your neighborhood are safe? I think those are really the baseline questions. They're going to have some things they agree with me on, some they disagree on, but I hope this is really a simpler in some ways and a bigger question in some ways on how they feel about the rest of the city. It's, do they want these intensely local investments? And that's where we find over and over people say yes, they do.
Well, I wonder if he regrets saying that.
I think that was a safe assumption for him to make. Obviously, people are on board by and large for the investments that are on this bond list. We've seen some of the projects that maybe people do have organized opposition to, like bridge improvements near the future Broncos Stadium, coupled with infrastructure needs and other things that are very popular ideas. So the idea that the entire list as a whole is passing in the way it is, I think the mayor knew. It was a pretty safe bet.
Yeah, it's interesting. The biggest ticket item in the entire package that Denver was considering was $89 million for the 8th Avenue Viaduct, which for folks who drive that regularly, like, they know that it's hot garbage. But it also is something that the billionaire owners of the Broncos wanted fixed before they go into Burnham Yard with the new stadium. So there was some potential friction there about, were people willing to pay for that to accommodate that development? And there's no suggestion from the early vote totals that we've seen that there's a lot of hesitation. Now, here's what I would say. I would not be surprised if every one of those bonds, 2A through 2E, tighten as the night goes on, as you get a younger, more progressive vote. There were some like TikTok campaigns against some of these issues and that kind of thing. I wouldn't be surprised if they tighten up a bit. But again, the closest one, 2A, that's the road and bridge stuff, including the work near the future Broncos Stadium, is passing by 20 points. Let's go to Marshall Zellinger, who is out tonight at the watch party for this vibrant Denver bond. I imagine, Marshall, that folks are feeling vibrant.
It's pretty vibrant. The vibe here is vibrant. Kyle, I'm a math nerd at times, and I know you say that A through E could tighten through the night, which is probably true, but I'm looking at the results, and as you say, 2A is the closest, 60-40, but they're separated by like 18,000 votes. And by my math, as of 2 p.m., this doesn't account for at least 25 to 30,000 votes. So basically every vote that hadn't been counted since about 2 p.m., I guess, would have to go no for this to like really be up in the air. And so that's how the statisticians try to figure out how to call a race. No one's really sweating out here about 2A through 2E. For the party's sake, it's a fun party. For my role today, it's kind of boring because status quo wins, bonds continue to pass. This currently is boring, so Foster Gaines is going to kind of show you the whip around of who's here. And I'm told you're not going to see anybody important necessarily behind Foster. This is staff, both administrative staff for the mayor and for the bond issues. I just wanted to show you what you can't see currently. Next to me might be the most prolific person in the room right now, former Mayor Federico Pena, doing an interview with our competition right next to me. I have seen, Kyle, some of the big wigs in the city, the cabinet members that are going to be in charge of the money they're going to get now through these bond issues, and it's just kind of job security now as these look to pass and the city continues to do what it does. This is how cities build infrastructures, through bonds, and except for the arena that former Mayor Michael Hancock wanted, voters say yes.
Yeah, all right. Marshall Zellinger, sorry about your boring night, but you know what? At least it's a boring night around happy people. Boring nights around sad people are the worst.
At least the vibes are good.
The vibes are good, yeah. Slow nights around sad people, those turn into drinky situations, and those are never good. Marshall, we will talk to you again on 9 News at 9. Just real quick, I want to run you through where Denver School Board stuff stands right now. And when we look at the Denver School Board, unlike, say, some of the suburban and the rural school districts, it's not necessarily like teachers union versus conservatives. It's more like teachers union endorsed candidates versus so-called education reformers, folks that are tight with charter schools, some like outside education reformer types. That's kind of the dynamic in these races. And as they stand right now, the Denver Teachers Union endorsed candidates hold an edge in every one of the races, but most of them are too close to call. We don't have graphics, so I apologize. You're just going to have to look at my forehead while I read these off to you. In the at-large race, Amy Klein-Molk leads Alex Magana by about 10 percentage points. So that's going to be too close to call, but a sizable advantage for the Teachers Union endorsed candidate in that race. In District 2, this is down to the district level, Xochitl Gaitan holds about a 9-10-point lead over Mariana Del Herrero, and she is the so-called reformer candidate Gaitan has been on the board for a long time, has been in board leadership. She is teachers union endorsed, so she leads that race comfortably. Too close to call is District 3. This is portions of northeast Denver. This is an interesting three-way race. We have Scott Esserman, who is a longtime board member, previously teachers union endorsed. He has lost their endorsement. They have now endorsed a guy named DJ Torres to run against the quote-unquote reformer Karen Blank. And right now the race is too close to call between DJ Torres, the teachers union candidate, and Karen Blank, the reformer candidate. Notably, Scott Esserman, incumbent board member, has not cracked 20% of the vote in that race, and about 1 percentage point separates the union candidate Torres from the reformer candidate Blank in the 3rd district in DPS. One more to give you in DPS, District 4. This is where you have a similar situation to 3, in which you have an incumbent board member, Michelle Quattlebaum, formerly endorsed by the teachers union, has lost their endorsement. That endorsement has now gone to a woman named Monica Hunter, who holds a fairly wide lead, about a 12 percentage point lead over Tamaya Jackson, who was endorsed by the mayor as well as the reformers group. Again, a 12 percentage point lead in a 4-way race in District 4. Michelle Quattlebaum, the incumbent, formerly union endorsed, in last place out of the 4 at 15 percentage points. So if you're looking at the big picture in the Denver School Board, it looks to be a good night for the teachers union endorsed candidates, but not necessarily a clean sweep. We'll especially be watching that race out of northeast Denver.
I would say quickly, if the union-backed candidates do have a good night, that's a big swing from what we saw in the last election cycle for the school board, where reformer candidates really cleaned house. And I think a lot of times that is a reaction to interpersonal conflict that we have seen on the board. We've reported on that, throughout the years. Maybe gives some credence to why the incumbent candidates are struggling or have lost union endorsements. But last election cycle, the reform candidates really picked up several seats, and that would be a big change if the union-backed candidates have a big comeback here this year.
So just a couple of out-of-state things that we're watching before we wrap up, and we're going to rejoin you at 9 o'clock for 9 News at 9. We're going to be on after basketball on 9 News tonight, some NBA basketball. But in Virginia, the Democrats have flipped the governor's office. Republican Glenn Youngkin, term limited out. You can only do 1 term at a time in Virginia. So he had to make way, and Democrat Abigail Spanberger cruised to a very easy win there in Virginia as they appear to win top to bottom on the ballot there. The Dems do in Virginia. In New Jersey, Democrat Mikey Sherrill appears to have won there. Neither of these are enormous surprises, but they were certainly races that national Republicans wanted to make closer than they were, and Democrats are going to see lots of green shoots for the future and in Dem overperformance in Virginia and in New Jersey. Do we have a graphic for the New York City mayor's race? We do. Take a look. All right, so I am not enough of a student of New York City politics to tell you what percentage of the expected vote is in, but here you have, they think it's about 60% of the vote, says our producer, Jack. Zoran Mamdani, the Democratic nominee, Democratic Socialist, leading by 8 percentage points over Andrew Cuomo, and hovering very close to that plurality mark, that 50% mark. An underperformance for Republican Curtis Sliwa based on where the polls were. What Cuomo needed to do tonight was to pull off the Sliwa voters, Republicans who didn't want to vote for a current or former Democratic nominee, but knew that Sliwa was not going to win. It looks like, at least in the 60% of the vote that is in, Cuomo has done that to some extent, but Mamdani hovering around 50% with 60% of the vote in, and this is expected to be a huge turnout there.
Yeah, I think it's already the largest turnout they've seen in 30 years per their election board. Looking at those Cuomo numbers, you have to wonder how much this last-minute push from President Donald Trump and also Cuomo to align himself with Trump has really helped him peel off some of those Sliwa voters who may have been hesitant to vote for a Democratic candidate, a former Democrat. There's been talk, throughout the day. President Trump has said, vote for Cuomo. Cuomo has said, if you elect Mamdani, Trump is going to send in the National Guard. Do you want to send in the National Guard to New York City, or do you want to vote for me, Andrew Cuomo, and I can protect us against that? So you have to wonder whether that's really pushed him over the finish line with Republican voters.
Yeah, I mean, you would think well, what good is a Donald Trump endorsement in New York City? But if the one thing you have to do is peel off Republican voters to defeat a Democratic Socialist, then it is somewhat, utilitarian for Andrew Cuomo. So again, just to recap, in Colorado tonight, The Vibrant Denver bond, Mayor Mike Johnson's signature project, all 5 parts of it passing easily in the early going. This is all of the pre-election day voting, which is usually at least 50% of the vote. It's passing easily 20% or better in every single one of the various categories. Denverites appear to be poised to keep the ban on flavored tobacco and shake up the way that city council races work to make the city council at large races go to a runoff similar to the mayor's race. At the statewide level, Coloradans appear very cool with the idea of continuing the so-called free lunch program, the Healthy Meals for All program, allowing the state to continue to take a bit more tax revenue from folks who make more than $300,000 a year. We will continue to post updates on 9news.com, and then you'll see us at 9 o'clock for continuing coverage of Decision 2025 on 9 News. For Mallory Harris and all of us here at 9 News, we'll see you in a bit.